What time is this? Agenda items, I don't think we have a big agenda, but I know a lot to discuss. So if we can, let's see, Omar,
If we could,
I did.
roll call.
That's what I was about to do. I was gonna ask Omar if he can do the pledge. Omar, do you mind doing the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect. Thank you. Just like you to me. Yeah, exactly. So this is the time for, so item number 4, I'm sorry, 3, roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Commissioners Rosa?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Lago? Ricketts?
Here.
Reyes?
Here.
And Chair Hernandez.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item number 4 is public input. So this is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to staff before speaking. When staff calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the commission. I'll just leave it at that. So do we have any speakers?
No speakers for this item.
Okay, awesome. So item number 5, on to the commission business. So the June 17 regular meeting minutes, are we adopting these minutes for? Yeah. So if we can, did everybody get the meeting minutes? Did you get a chance to read them? Any questions? I would like to get a copy of the minutes. I haven't had any. Maybe I saw it. Jeff, if we can, I'd like to get a copy of the minutes, but I mean, I'll still obviously do the motion to see. We can-
The minutes are in the agenda packet that's on your computer.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying because I had some IT issues. I haven't gotten any of that info. Oh, and I appreciate that. My point is normally I get them ahead of time so I can read them, so I know what I'm approving, right? Because the minutes are specifically so that you can know what you got.
The agenda, the minutes were in the agenda packet that I emailed out last week.
Like I said, I didn't get an
So,
email.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
do you want a hard copy? I have hard copies on the table.
So, but I'm willing to make a motion, obviously, for those that were able to get that email and read it. So does anybody have any questions?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from last week.
Can I get a second, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, aye.
All abstain just because I haven't read them, but it's still a 4-1, so they pass. Awesome. So item 5.2, discussion of the 2026 Hollister Independence Rally and suggestion for future rally events. So,
Yeah, and so we have a staff report on that, Chair.
awesome.
And so the staff report is going to drive the discussion. We want to stay limited to the items that the staff report drills down on. So we are looking, so a couple of things. Number one, we want you all to know that we had Leah Caldron from the city manager's office, who was also the liaison.
Can you put your mic on, please? I don't know if we can hear
It's
you.
on.
Oh, it is.
Leah Caldron, the city manager office liaison that had gone down and coordinated with a lot of the downtown businesses. I asked her to send out the Business Advisory Commission agenda
Oh, awesome.
to and do kind of contact them. So it's a little bit surprising that we don't have more members of our business community.
Did you
in
get that, Bill?
attendance.
It's a every got a 1-day notice, by the way. Just, I mean, half the people react. Yeah, it's a little harder. Yep.
Yeah, I asked for that last week at the same time as you guys all got the agenda on Friday last week.
Yeah.
So that being said, so we are looking to have just a brief discussion of the current, what your perception was of the current rally that was held on July 3rd and 4th. And then we will move into the city is looking at potentially issuing an request for proposal for some partnership of how future rallies might go together. So that is actually attached as part of the staff report to you guys on this item. So we were to review that, and if we had any specific suggestions to that. Then third, we will be coming down to the city would like to see us add, and I think this was backed up on social media, we would like to add a family-friendly component to the future rallies as consideration. So we would be looking for suggestions. I have some thoughts. There's a map that is attached in the staff report where I think we can bring that map up on the monitor as we get to that item, and we'll look and talk about where I think the family-friendly component could work and be kind of synergistic with the traditional rally footprint. And then the city would like to consider what it would look like to expand the duration of the event to multiple days beyond 2. And then we would like to, I was hoping to have more of the local businesses in attendance so that we got more direct feedback from them on to how we could increase their engagement in either the family-friendly component or in the traditional rally component for future rally events. Okay. That being said, please lead the discussion. Point number 1.
Okay,
again,
so the
we're-
3 points really quick, if you can
So-
reference them again.
Right.
Family friendly, 3-day, and then there was one other one.
Well, so the 3 points for future consideration are adding a family-friendly component,
Yep.
expanding the duration of the event beyond 2 days, and then improving local business engagement and participation. So right now, what we're looking for is a brief statement from commissioners as to what was your perception of the 2026 rally, which was held on July 3rd, the Friday, July 3rd, and then Friday, July 4th. Some businesses might have been impacted as well on Thursday because that was kind of a setup day. So with that, Chair, please take
Awesome.
questions.
Well, and I'll just reference a little bit of my conversation with the city manager. But in general, the city, wants to make this event better. What does that look like? These are kind of 3 starting points to gauge that. And I would love to hear feedback from the commissioners, from the chamber, from the HDA on their thoughts.
Can we follow the format, brief point of view from each of you as to the perception of the 2026 rally?
Well, and I just want.
And then let's move to the next pieces so that each of you have a chance to have input.
I appreciate that. All I'm saying is I want to give it a little bit more context of that conversation. Because in general, right, the thought was, how do we get more businesses engaged in the rally? My thoughts were, is obviously you got to make it to where the businesses are seeing a benefit to their business. But my mention to the city manager was we're kind of chiefs in our own little world. We have a lot of heads or hats that we wear, right? There's a lot going on. So to get a business owner to be part of something like this, there has to be a strong collaborative effort. And ultimately, obviously, they see the overall benefit, not just to their business, but to the businesses countywide. And obviously, this is where the organizations also could play a big part. But then the other thoughts was definitely trying to make sure that this thing is a lot more to where the revenue ultimately not ultimately outweighs the cost, but at the same time increases potential benefits to the city coffers, right? That's kind of the overall gist. So I'd love to open it up to see what you guys' thoughts were. And, you know, I know that we'll piggyback off of each other as we go. So if you don't mind, if you guys want to speak first, if we could try not to talk over each other, but in general, I'd like to open it up for sure.
I'll go first. Unfortunately, due to medical unforeseen reasons, we had to close. So we were not open during the biker rally this year. Adding a family-oriented component to the rally is something that's very enticing to us, something that I think the community would respond well to. I think that helps provide a solid marketing approach to the biker rally. In regards to extending it to 3 or 4 days of a rally, I can, in good faith, honestly make a suggestion for that, considering the finances of the overall biker rally. We don't know how much it costs us, how much it brought in, and extending that without knowing the finances is a discussion that I don't think I can make a legit suggestion towards.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can make a couple of comments. I think from people I've talked to in general about the event and my own kind of perception is it's relatively narrow in terms of its focus. If you're an avid motorcycle rider or part of a club, like you see it as an event that makes sense for you to attend. If you're not, then you don't see what's in it for you, and people tend not to go. So I think the idea of broadening the event to get more appeal, whether that's family friendly, or you're bringing in a car show component, or there's lots of ideas we could brainstorm. But a broader set of people need to see this event as something that they would like to, or it makes sense for them to participate in. And then I think on the business side, we probably need to think of ways that we get businesses who are near the center of activity, but not necessarily right in the middle of it, to feel more a part of it. And maybe there's something we can do. I'm just thinking of things that I've seen in the past that have worked, where as part of your ticket, you're getting discounts on items, or you're getting a free item in a particular business, because you need to get something that gets them in the door at a business. Once they're in the door, they're going to buy other stuff. I think most businesses, Hopper Bros, the business I'm a part of, wasn't part of downtown yet. We hopefully will be next year if we stay on schedule. And, I could see us saying, okay, we're going to offer some item at a, significant discount or for free, and then you get people in and you can sell them more. So, and if that was somehow publicized as part of the event, where I see, okay, here are the businesses, here's what I get if I go there, and it puts it, I now have the attention of the attendee, versus otherwise they might not pay any attention to our business. So anyway, those are just a couple of thoughts.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah. So for me, I think what really sealed the deal was that I was at the fireworks booth and people were asking me, is there a rally this year? And to me, that was what kind of threw me off, because I was like, it's happening as we speak. It's July 3rd. It's going on right now. Like, really? So that's what to me was kind of caught my eye, because we were people at Safeway buying fireworks booths or fireworks from me, and they were asking us if there was a rally this year. So people, I think, didn't know that something was happening. So there's this perception that maybe the marketing wasn't as strong. It wasn't really rolled out the way we wanted it to roll out. I know there was commercials that I heard or somebody was mentioning that, but I just felt like we dropped the ball on the marketing aspect of this within our own community and outside the community as well. And the other part of it too is I came down twice on different days for different things, and I noticed the side streets were just completely dead. Where in San Benito Street, of course, you had everybody kind of doing their thing and riding around. You had people there, but the side streets businesses, like there was no activity, nothing there to really draw people to those sides of things. So it was kind of like, why did we shut that area down? And the only other component too was the vendors themselves. It felt like if you went to one stall, you pretty much saw all the other stalls. There was nothing unique about stall 1 versus stall 2 versus stall 3. So, I mean, once you did that, it's like, well, why am I even walking to the next one and do that if I can get everything in one place? So those are just some of the thoughts that I saw from my experience that I saw there. But I think the marketing was the main thing. I just don't think it was promoted as well as we had hoped.
Yeah, and I just want to add a couple of things to piggyback off of what Omar said. Yeah, the marketing, we too, as the chamber, we had a booth, and days leading up prior to, we were asked multiple times if the rally was happening. They didn't see any marketing. So I think a stronger approach, if to say we were going to have a rally next year, I think it would have been safe to say that we have our marketing package in plan now, and we start getting that out to all of our businesses with the plan of what we're going to do for next year, if that's what we were going to do. Usually when you have an event or any type of scalability, like as far as the type of event that we have, usually a day or 2 days after you reconvene and you say, hey, what did we do? What could we have done better? And then invite the business community as well to be a part of the conversation. So that way they can put in some of the challenges that they faced and something that they feel that could have been done differently. And I think if we make that a collaborative effort with our businesses and incorporate our businesses in the planning process, I think that would be a huge success to everybody involved, because at the end of the day, I feel, we are a community, we're a smaller community. So if we can all work collaboratively and really kind of pick out what's going to work for our community, that necessarily we're not Sturgis. We're San Benito counties, but there's no reason why we can't have a successful event. But again, starting early in the marketing process, really getting that down. Do we have the dates? Do we have a promoter? Who's the go-to? Who can we refer our businesses to if they have questions on marketing material? Who can be responsible to get that out? Are we doing outside marketing in different counties? Are we collaborating with different counties and their chambers and their downtown associations? Are we getting that information locally around us? So I think, time to plan for a future event, but I think we could do a lot better in that avenue of area, and using our umbrella of Visit California to even tie that in as far as tourism goes. As far as extending the days, I do have a couple of comments on extending the days. I had a couple of conversations with a couple of businesses, and the fact that we're having it for 2 days, one of the concerns is they are planning for an event, and so therefore they're having to buy, whether it's extra liquor, food, staff, and permitting and all of that. So when they calculate all of that for 2 days, the profit isn't as large as they would like to see. So in my opinion, of course, Adam, understandably, we haven't seen financials. But I think as far as if we had, a 3-day event like we used to have in the past, which was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, everything has to be cleaned up by Monday. I even think if it's 4 days is too much for our community, that's very understandable. Then we can do 3. But I think right now, some of the businesses, like for example, the bars and restaurants, they're preparing and spending that amount of funds, but at the same time, it's not long enough for them to be able to regenerate and get those profits back. So I think that would be an area for us to really consider extending it to be able to make it profitable for our businesses downtown. And then too, absolutely, we need a family-friendly approach to this as well. Other conversations that I've had about partnering with the chamber, utilizing some of our members, us taking that portion on, or hopefully helping assist with some of our members with the face painting and bounce houses and all of that. And I really think expanding and really making it family friendly is where we're going to get people to come. As a parent myself, there was I have littles, so being able to feel that, I think it'd be super important. And more entertainment, I'd like to add. Using our side streets for stages and entertainment would be great.
Awesome. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I just have one other comment. I think part of it to me is also who are you marketing to? Because I think there's multiple groups that you could go after. Is our goal to increase the out-of-town participation, get more thousands of cyclists to come in, or is it broader community interest and attendance? Because I think those could be quite different in terms of how you would go about it and what would attract them. One example would be if you had a headliner music group that the cyclists were all really into, that would probably really get their attention and bring a lot more of them in. Yeah. You could market the heck out of that. Might not appeal to a lot of the local community, may or may not. But so what's our goal? Is our goal to really increase that, get a couple thousand more cyclists in here? Or is it to get broader community interest and involvement? Because I don't know that those two necessarily, the things that you would do and how you would attract them and market them would be the same.
Awesome. One of our commissioners just showed up.
Apologies for being late. I was in a devastating motorcycle accident on August 1st, and I had an appointment in Stanford to discuss a shoulder replacement surgery.
Oh, well, we're glad you could make it, Peter. Thank you. So we all kind of gave our take just to catch you up on the rally, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, what do we think? How could it be better? And so everybody kind of gave their piece, and some of the main points were, it was a short event. There was there's no understanding of the revenue, and ultimately what other benefits they could have brought with like more entertainment, not cookie cuttering every booth that the rally brought, right, with the promoter. Anyways, that's kind of some general gist, but I know we're limited on time. Yeah, I'd love your thoughts on this, Peter.
I have a degree in entertainment facility management from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I did concerts and events between Las Vegas and Hawaii for near 37 years. I've owned that bar for 8, and I've been involved with it since 2002. I also go to motorcycle rallies because all of the vendors are the same vendors you see around there. There's not one rally in the United States that is only 2 days that is successful. If you and I are in business and we're selling t-shirts and we just spent $50,000 on dated t-shirts, drove 800 miles to get here and had $2,500 in setup and permit fees in order to build a tent, we'd be hard pressed to make our money back inside of just 2 days. So the problem that we have with making something like this profitable is the short duration in which you have all of these setup fees and these things necessary for the event, but you don't have enough money to monetize it back for any of the vendors to be able to support any of the infrastructure that goes into making it happen. So we do have King of the Baggers. Laguna Seca King of the Baggers is the following week, and if we could turn it into a bike week, we could reduce the powder keg effect of having so many people in one concentrated area just inside of 2 days. But if we hosted in open streets and only did like a farmer's market of closed 2 days, you would see more vendor involvement, which would fund you for all of the policing that you need. We also, of all of the events we had, ironically, there was a Monterey car show. They gave stats from it. There was over 135 tickets issued. There was 48 arrests. There was all these things just with a car show. We don't have the same problems there in the motorcycle community because they are relatively self-regulating. Having done security overseas for Kellogg Brown and Root, and having done security for this particular bar that I own now since 2002, we rarely had a security event that got really bad from 2002, 3, 5, 8, 12, 15, 17, until I bought the bar. Most bikers, especially if they're in clubs, don't want to involve the rest of the club in a skirmish. If I've got a problem with you, why would we involve this whole big entity? So they tend to be very self-regulating, and they're also, at this age of the demographic that's showing up at this point, it's a big family reunion. We get people that come in there that are there to see somebody that traveled across the country to be here. And so it's not the big scary thing that it's being kind of painted out to be. A lot of that is really just honestly pure ignorance. And for a guy who owns the epicenter of it and deals with all of that directly for the last 26 years, I would say that the concerns are largely unfounded for the amount of security that we have there. Given the footprint of the farmers market stretched out to where the Hollister sign is, we could do this on a nonprofit 501c3. I already found one. And if we just had Lloyd's of London do the insurance, we could do it with a quarter of the security and just have a 2-day shutdown of those areas. And also, when you go to places like Sturgis and Laconia Bike Week and everything, all the brick and mortar buildings that are there that don't have the ability to directly support those rallies because maybe it's a hair salon or maybe they do nails or something like that, most of which just push their wares back about 16 feet, put up pipe and drape, and use those storefronts to sell t-shirts to those vendors, thereby actually using the buildings themselves. And most of those places pay their rent for the entire year based on those things because they can charge whatever they want.
Because they rent from those buildings.
Correct. And
From
unlike the
those,
farmer's market,
business-
instead of using those buildings as the world's most expensive backdrop for an event that's happening in front of those places, this is actually utilizing the buildings themselves and a lot of the buildings that haven't been rented to be able to use as space for those things. Anywhere you go, whether it's Sturgis or any of these other places, they'll rent your building, set up pipe and drape, and rent that building out at a pretty penny. So any struggling businesses can capitalize off of that very easily.
there could be a way, I mean, ultimately, that was part of the conversation was how do we create a direct or indirect benefit so that more participation is a part of this? Technically speaking, by default, that means there's more support, right? That means, you know, without, trying to make it too much about the stuff that's on Facebook about the rally, but technically it would help present a little bit of a positive face on the rally, right? 'Cause
It
right now,
eliminates the need for extra infrastructure because your vendors are now utilizing and renting the existing buildings. It also gives the building owner and the building tenant the ability to present themselves to those people simultaneously. Most places, if you go into in Sturgis, will have like a t-shirt place set up within another building, but then a little corner of it over here is a kiosk that represents the store that you can visit after
and I
the
think
rally.
some of the divide is the businesses are like, why do I want this rally? I'm not getting the benefit.
Absolutely,
Right?
and unless you make it to where everybody wins, then it's set up to fail.
Yeah.
2 days, blocking off businesses, set up to fail. If you include the businesses and give them the opportunity to host vendors within their place and host themselves, and you extend it a little bit, then those vendors are not only going to utilize those spaces because they don't have to set up a tent, and we're not blocking anything, and it doesn't require any infrastructure to do it. You're also giving some extra rent money to those beleaguered businesses that are suffering, just like everything up and down San Benito Street is ever since we created the bypass.
Yep,
So we want to,
it's an excellent
so that's
summary.
excellent. How we might look to try to increase local business engagement is through utilization of the property front. I think that addresses some other items that I heard from other commissioners during the rally from business owners was sometimes the city, we got generators to help set up because we were looking at vendor tents, right? So if the vendors are using the existing brick and mortar space, that's a benefit maybe to the business owners.
Less infrastructure for the
And
city to
it,
set
and
up.
it stops the tent and the generators having to be out in the city streets and blocking potentially view. And so it might open the venue up a little bit too. So it could be appeasing that way too.
Considerably. And all you have to do is go to any existing successful rally and look at how they're running it. And almost all of them are using the footprint of the city itself and then utilizing the fronts of those businesses so that you do not have to augment the flow. You can get fire trucks in and out of there. Your stated flow of traffic does not have to be then built on top of what's there. You're utilizing what's there. And all of those business owners get to capitalize on renting their space for those rallies.
So, so for time essence, then you've presented a really good option for increasing business engagement. It sounds like you are in favor of expanding the duration of the event. And you're suggesting that there's ways to do it where we do it with a nonprofit that could get insurance to help with some of the technical sides, right?
And once we do that and tie it to King of the Baggers, you would have Indian corporate and Harley Davidson corporate. So you'd have the large corporate sponsors, Dunlop Tires, Mission Tortilla Chips would all come back in because then they get to promote their event, which is going to be coming up the following week.
And I know,
And I just want to keep this because we're needing to move through other items and we want to give everybody a fair chance. So I appreciate that
I
you have
appreciate
some
you guys giving me
extra,
an
you have
opportunity.
some extra expertise. So
I know,
checking in with you real quick, adding a family-friendly component to the rally. The map up here was put in the staff report for discussion because I believe that there's a synergy if we look to do family-friendly component on the McCray side so that whichever way we arrange for like security or whatever, it's very easy to extend over to McCray. It's within touching distance. We have a fire station at the very southeast corner of the traditional rally, which is in yellow highlight there. That's the traditional rally footprint from this year. And then the proposed potential area to utilize for the family-friendly component would be the McCray frontage over there. So you have a fire station right in between. So there's some nice synergy. And then for our officers, because we typically have a few of our officers leading the officer squads between the two events. So it would be close enough that it would not be a significant increase in terms of travel distance. Like, we don't want to do a component of the rally out at the airport and down here because it stretches us too thin on limited resources.
Correct.
So on that, so your take on adding a family-friendly component? Because
Easily done, and I've got 5 different car clubs that would love to come and set up car shows, both classic cars and lowriders and everything like that.
Excellent.
They would bring the event to you at no cost, and you would have something there to show everybody. And the car clubs themselves are very family-friendly, very orientated towards, having kids around and everything like. And you've got all these dads and uncles around there that are very self-regulating.
I think a big part of the public participation, I think, is really important. 2 things. One is, and I love Peter's comments, technically this is an ongoing conversation, right? So I know this is not the end of it, this is just the start. But that means that there's so many pieces to, because this is its own business technically, right? The whole rally weekend, because there's so many components to it. So bottom line is, I had mentioned to the city that it's a good idea that the business commission basically oversee the implementation of the process and technically, obviously, direct the ship, I would argue. And the other component is to try to basically get the a stronger understanding, which I think Adam and even Christina alluded to, is, and I think even at Omar had mentioned at one time, we really understand what the revenue generation potential is and be able to basically message that, because we also got to be able to, it's like a budget, right? You got to set a budget, what is this going to cost, but at the same time also set a potential revenue and what does that look like, and how are we actually in this process making sure that we're offsetting costs and even reducing costs for the city by creating a better rally. I firmly believe it can be done. I just know that the business community believes this is how we think.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's got to be messaged out to the public.
One of the first things we need to do in order to be able to do this, we need to create a metric that goes from June 28th to about July 12th to be able to figure out every year all of the businesses around hotels, gas stations, everything like that. Did we see an uptick? And in years where we didn't, like during COVID or something like that, how much loss of revenue was there? If we can create a revenue, then we can look at the taxable revenue generated by all the affected businesses and be able to say, okay, it cost us this much money to put it on, but so many people visited, here's your offset. And that's really what we're trying to do is bring tourism here. And there's a guy who lived in Las Vegas and a guy who lived in Maui, Hawaii. That was our business, was to bring tourism dollars there, and then everybody would make more money. So it's not just who's there within the confines of the rally. It's the entire town and the entire town's ability, whether it's grocery stores, gas stations, hotels, ability to be able to put money in their coffers because an event has visited town.
Yeah.
And if it's not good for all of us, it's not good for any of us.
Yeah, and I can share with you that the city does have a contract with the company Hinderleiter Delamas. They do sales tax tracking, and we did do some fourth quarter tracking, and there was kind of a geo area set up for downtown. And I will just say, because I can't divulge too much, a lot of that is confidential information, but I can indicate to you that it was surprising that fourth quarter comparison year over year and to previous years, it's not as significant of a jump in terms of sales tax generated. And I don't know that they got TOT tax yet. So TOT tax we're still waiting for. I suspect TOT tax would show a bigger increase in terms of that fiscal quarter.
And because we're all on motorcycles in this event, it would be like taking the revenue just generated in Sturgis downtown and saying that's how much money Sturgis makes. Sturgis is $1 billion event because everybody goes between 3 states. They're driving around seeing the things.
Yeah.
So really what we would need to do is take a look at Monterey and San Benito County, but mostly San Benito County because that's what we care about. What did we generate in San Benito County? From the gas stations that lead off of 101 to the wineries that are on Cienega Loop. That's where you're going to see that if you narrow it down to just one area, it would be like taking the demographic and or the metric from Sturgis just to the downtown area and seeing what it did. And it would be grossly misleading.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just saying in terms of sales tax.
Correct.
Citywide sales
Just
tax.
sales
Yeah.
As well as within the geo area that we set up to try to capture more specifically the downtown.
Yeah.
It was not as significant of a change for that fiscal quarter.
You're talking about this
Which
last
is also
year?
one of the most important reasons
For
why.
any year, if you go back and you compare to a year where we didn't have it versus having the rally, it wasn't that significant of a jump.
Right,
in
because the
terms
way
of
that we
sales
were
tax.
doing it was closing off streets and putting up tents and having them pay to set up tents rather than having them utilize the buildings that are downtown that are otherwise sequestered and blockaded for that event. Some of your tenants may cash in hand and some of them may claim the money that they made when they rented their storefront. But I can tell you for very good reason, if you look at Sturgis and the amount of money that that town is able to bring in the 1 week rally that it is their most significant moneymaker in the entire year. Granted, it's a larger rally, but we have 1.3 billion registered motorcycles within a day's ride of where we're at right now. We have all these beautiful hills and things like that to ride. We've just underutilized our hand in trying to educate the public on all the great places, wineries and things like that there are to go and enjoy in San Benito County.
So I think the idea of the city looking to propose that we would go out to request for proposal gives the opportunity for some of these creative ideas, like a nonprofit organization to come in and to take it or partner so that it can incorporate more of these types of efforts, right? I think we all can agree that marketing was severely limited this year for whatever reason.
Right.
I think, when
To
you
be
talk-
clear, Jeff,
when
there was-
you talk about security or you talk about any of the other components, we obviously were behind the 8 ball in getting those engagements. Security is an example, needs to be engaged with a contract back in January, February timeframe, because when you want higher level quality people at being there to be your security presence, they're all making decisions where they're going to spend their time for what events they're going to cover.
Right.
They're signing up in February, March. So if you haven't engaged in a commitment in a contract, you're not going to get the higher end, you're going to get the leftovers, right?
And it is a tough
So-
order to fill because you're asking police officers who are already dealing with, somebody blew their finger off, the dog ran away with a bottle of rockets, all that stuff is already happening anyway on a 4th of July weekend. And then it's also a federal holiday. And then you're also tasking them with doing this at the same
And
time. That's certainly been,
Travel.
it's certainly been a lot for law enforcement to deal with on any given holiday where people are literally playing with fire. By the way, we want you to babysit a rally.
And if we continue the model of the security, I think if we engage sooner and we can kind of count on a little better quality of the type of security guard we get on inside the event, then you can make certain reductions in the
Yeah.
number that needs to be within the footprint.
We
So,
could have gone with 1/10 of the amount of security if we had well-trained.
yes.
Yeah.
And one more thing, I think along the family-friendly lines, I don't know if anybody's seen Peter Lago's video, the story of basically how the rally got started, with the Wild One, Sonny Barger, right? All this. It's like a branding effect, right? Because I know that's been part of the county conversation is what is San Benito County? Why, what makes this unique and different? I firmly believe the rally is a big part of the history, right? Ending the World War II, these soldiers coming back from war, they're the ones that knew how to fix these Indian motorcycles. My point is it could easily tie in, I believe, to the family-friendly component, making it a lot more of a nostalgic and to a certain extent, a lot more of an endearing type of a rally versus it being all about people getting drunk and riding motorcycles, right? It would be less than that. It would be more, I think, appealing. And then ultimately with that brand, then you're tying other things to that, the family-friendly components that obviously jive with it. So I just think it's really important. That's why this conversation has to be pretty ongoing. I don't know if we're going to have this conversation every agenda, but I think it's going to be important as pieces start to come by. And I think I agree with Christina. The marketing needs to start now, right? We already need to put these pieces in place.
We also have a great deal of resources so one of the things that I'm about to send to you right now is in 2019, we threw our own rally and we had filmmakers come from 6 different, Russ Brown motorcycle attorneys and Dunlop tires and all that stuff. And we have a video called Hollister, It's All About the Ride. And it goes into not the specific history, as I've made 4 different videos that cover our history and why it's important, which is, it is a dying history because it's baby boomer history. And if you ask anybody under 40, they're not as well connected to it as we with parents who were, involved in that directly work. But we made a series of videos in 2019 called Hollister, It's All About the Ride. And it literally talks about all the great places that there are to go in San Benito County, all the cool things that there are to see and why it's important to be here. Those resources are standing by and available because they would all love to do sponsorships and have their name everywhere. There's several that I work with, as I used to do TV and film and everything like that before I bought the bar. And I made a couple of videos and did the voiceover work on it just to help keep the production costs down. And I can do that very easily again. So if we have need of advertising and stuff, I can get started on it just as soon as we have an agreement and a contract and all that.
Good stuff.
Excellent. Yep.
All
I
right.
think these are
Awesome.
great suggestions.
Can I
Well,
ask?
hopefully the minutes will share a lot of that.
Can I ask a stupid question for you guys? I would like to know, would it be less expensive to do the rally at a different time frame than the 4th of July week? Because you talked about the federal holiday, you talked about all the different things that we have to do during that week. You have all these people running around trying to find who blew their hand off and all that stuff. If you looked at a different date, would it make more sense in terms of the costs? Would it be cheaper if we did something else that wouldn't involve a holiday weekend? Those are just thoughts that I have on that side, because you said we're already kind of limited in resources and what we're doing. What if we didn't do it when we're limited in those resources?
We had discussed that, and I actually brought it up with the motorcycle clubs. I brought it up with Mike Corbin, Ray Sotelo. You need to have everybody to have the day off in order to get them to show up. So, yes, it makes a very good point that we wouldn't be paying, federal holiday and Davis-Bacon wages to officers that are already beleaguered with a bunch of other things that they have to do on top of this, and then making double time and a half and everything certainly represents a not very cost-effective way to police an event. But at the same time, the weekend before, the weekend after, you're not going to have people with the availability to do this. So a lot of times, if it's a 3-day weekend for them, we can get riders from Texas can come in because they have the whole weekend off. So they'll set aside time on 4th of July weekend to come. So if you draw a circle from where Hollister is to what I see literally come into the bar, and it's kind of nice because afterwards I get these stickers, I was here, and they'll say where it was from and everything like that. We literally have if you draw a line from the midpoint of the country to where we're at right now, we do get people that come all the way from there. We had a guy that came in from Florida. But primarily, if people have the time, they have the space to be able to show up to our rally, it's because they had the weekend off anyway. And moving it off of that rally would be an offense to the people who follow the tradition of the history, which is
Freedom Rally.
veterans who came and helped us win World War II were summarily kicked out of town because they were a little rough around the edges, undiagnosed PTSD, what have you. For them, it's the tradition of honoring those veterans. So I got howls from the people that I tried to convince, well, what if I moved it off there? They said, well, we're going to show up on 4th of July anyway, because that's our holiday. And if you want to do it on another, after that, we'll see how many people show up. But again, it becomes down to, it's a federal holiday, so you have more availability of those guys who ride motorcycles, which are usually a demographic of people that are still working but get the weekend off. So it's a great opportunity to have them and their availability. And of course, the caveat is you pay a lot more for the same police officer on that particular day. And it's much more frustrating for that individual because he's dealing with a lot of things anyway.
Good stuff. Awesome. Any more thoughts?
Jeff, what was your email?
First name, last name, and then at hollister.ca.gov.
Okay.
So if we are done with that, so Jeff, just really quick, when are we going to bring this item back?
Well, I think we have enough to report some feedback, right? To the city manager and/or council, we can say, what I would like to be able to say is, do we have a vote for a recommendation that we investigate issuing an RFP as a city? And do we include these items like, okay, family-friendly component? Do we explore that and really put some emphasis behind that? Do we look to expand the duration? I think the current version of the draft RFP said for 4 days.
Oh,
I think we should accept proposals being 3 or more days. You know, I think on the improving local business engagement, I like the idea of trying to utilize the storefronts, but that seems to, obviously you have to have willing, participative business
Voluntary
owners
basis for
that are
sure,
gonna
yeah.
wanna do that,
Right.
right? So that would take a concerted earlier effort. So I would say a recommendation that I heard to consensus that kind of stuff would be is that we would engage with the business community sooner on particularly the downtown corridor businesses. We need sooner engagement, try to get a buy-in into the concept of what they could do, choose to participate or choose to rent out the storefront, if you will, and see where that leads. We talked about, obviously, the vendor mix needs to be different. There needs to be a lot more marketing. So I think we've got a good foundation for some recommendations. And then what I would suggest is that we report that out, right? The commission body through the staff, we report that back out to city council and or city manager.
yeah. So, I mean, I
Before we entertain a motion, can we do public comment?
public comment, yeah. So all that said, is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this item?
Yeah, from Bill's bullpen.
Bill?
I'll make it perfectly clear. I'm not anti-rally, but Jeff's comment to start off the meeting was hurtful. All right. When we get notified one day in advance about a meeting about this, that's why there's nobody here. People can't drop the ball and come here one day in advance. The same thing happened 2 days before the rally started. I think Peter's in the room. Benito Link's in the room. I don't know anybody else. Omar was in the room when the city decided to have a meeting about how the planning of the traffic and what's going to be impacted 2 days before the event. So I don't mind having a party and having a rally and all this, but the planning for a person who's in business 365 days out of the year, we get kind of treated like an evil stepchild or somebody who's not really good. We need more better planning. At the meeting, there's a lot of questions about whether or not this was here. A lady at the hair salon says, I'm open on Friday. How am I going to get my clients? Is this parking lot going to be open? A lot of answers went unanswered. Karate studio said, you have to go pick up your kids 2 blocks away for the event. We didn't know this was going to happen on Friday. They're going to close the street on Thursday. So I get all this stuff. And if the rally makes money, great for everybody. If we have to close our business, which we don't, we stay open and fight through the blockade on East Street. And then I went around some businesses in my area and I asked who made money, who didn't. One prime example is great is that Payne's on East Street down, closed early Saturday. His other restaurant on Main Street made a lot of money. That's great. I'm all in favor of making money, but we need better organization. I'm tired of being a business owner and being treated like somebody on the side. The point of the matter is that got to have planning, got to make it happen. And don't forget about the people who are in the area of the rally, who are impacted, all right? Because all these things are great. I haven't heard any numbers. Do we make money? Previous year, we heard a $200,000 loss. I don't mind having a party and losing money, but garbage rates are going up 60%. Our water rates went up 30%. I don't mind losing money, but as a taxpayer, I want to make sure that we're using the money in the right way. That's all. And if Peter and everybody else comes together and has a great plan, I have no problem with it. But we have to look at the big picture and find out what we're doing. And as a business owner, I don't feel like we're being treated right. And Jeff, I don't know if the airport is a viable liability for having an event out there or not. Sturgis, like Peter said, I've been to Sturgis one time, not as a participant, but they have events that are outside the perimeter all over the place. I don't know. We had Blotto Park 40 years ago. It didn't work because of noise ordinance. We have an airport. Is that a viable option? I don't know. But in the meantime, we're here to make money. If the promoter's making money, then great, no problem. I want to make sure my store is protected at night. That's all I want to make sure. But the blockade on East Street and the free flow and traffic affects our business. And we're notifying they have to close the street, 24 hours prior to, and then there's garbage that's left over and I have to clean up. It's all the little things, but I just want to make sure that the people know that we are here all the time for Hollister. All right, I'm not anti-rally, but just make sure you don't forget us. That's all. And as a business owner, some of you up there are business owners, so that's all. Just want to make sure we did that, because your comment about nobody here tonight as a business owner, 1 day notice for an email. And the same thing happened when we wanted to do find out about how the rally went. 1 day notice. That's why nobody's here.
I think, thank you, Bill, and you bring up some very good points. One of the things that we had within the first 2 years of this was our promoter went from the lead guy who was going to do the architectural as to how it was going to go down, to him just being basically a consultant, and the city in the midst of trying to do a lot of forensic accounting, which was taking up the majority of their time, tossed this off onto an individual and said, figure it out. And he did a great job. A lot of the, ad hoc or lack of direction as it turns to informing all of the business owners and everything like that, we should be able to avoid this coming year. If I'm involved with it, as I hope to be, we're going to try and see if we can include each one of the businesses with regard to access to your business, how it affects your business, whether or not you want to be involved with the rally in some capacity, and making sure that you have access therein. What we did in the last rally was, okay, we've got a footprint. Okay, this is what's going to work. And then, of course, you've got, in government, you've got any number of agencies that have to sign off and approve on it. So you can't present anything until fire and police and everybody else has been able to sign off. Okay, this will work. K barriers here, not here. We'll do the best we can to iron that out ahead of time and be able to let everybody know how it would affect everybody, provided we even are able to do a rally. But I know that if I'm involved with it, I know for certain that what's good for my neighbors is ultimately good for me. And if it's not good for them, it's not going to be good for me. I'm not a politician. I'm just here in an advisory thing as a business owner myself. And I would not want to do anything that harms anybody up or down my street. And in fact, my goal is to try and make it good for everybody in the entire town, or not do it.
So typically, just procedurally, we don't respond directly to
Oh, sorry.
public comment. So, and Chair, we would.
No, I
want
mean,
to
I still think what Peter shared was
It's
consistent.
very valid. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
What I'd like to recognize right now is we have a commissioner that needs to leave.
oh, you do?
My apologies, guys. I gotta go take care of the farmer's market shutdown, so step away.
Thanks, Omar.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you, Omar.
So yeah, I mean, just to close it down, I mean, ultimately, it sounds like we just need a planning process, if that could be added to when we bring this back. That planning process obviously we need to somehow build
An open source
an email
website that gives you guys
list
what our plans
or
are.
some way of basically presenting out that information so the business community is aware of it, so that they're aware of it in advance, right? When these conversations are
And I
going to happen.
think on the city side, we, again, I spoke to the fact that we need to make certain commitments earlier, because the result of not making the earlier commitments is the lack of time to engage properly.
Right.
So.
I mean, you guys got it thrown in
I
your
feel
lap.
like that the comments we just heard are validation that we did not make our commitments to conduct the rally and the necessary commitments of the different facets of it soon enough to have the proper engagement. So I appreciate the businesses that are here and represented. And so it was good public comment to hear. I think I've heard that and seen that in social media as a common theme for others in the downtown corridor. So,
Yeah.
so I'm happy that we've at least had one person that could make it and talk to us.
So, I mean, I'd like to finish the conversation with making a recommendation to bring this back as an official rally committee or part of the agenda for it to be part of our process.
Our purview as a commission, we don't create committees.
Well, for us,
and
granted.
And so at this point, we would be making certain recommendations here. I think that
To the
goes
city
back to the
council.
city, and then what we need to see is the city council going to, what is their direction around the rally, and then look to say, okay, would you like us to bring an item back? Would you like, maybe we use this commission to vet RFPs? Maybe so we look at, can we get a role, but that direction at this point, we fulfilled what our purview is, which is to take feedback and give suggestions. I think we've been very complete in that, and I'm sure we could spend a lot more time.
Could we
So-
make it part of our agenda every meeting that we have to have a back and forth with the business owners as it relates to where we are with the rally and get feedback, but also disseminate any progress that's being made on it. So they can
Anything that
stay
would be
informed.
considered
Yes.
public.
What I just want to say is that we have fulfilled our purview at this point. It's now in the hands of the council to receive those recommendations and kind of give us the direction next. Now, if they say yes, we want to continue with the rally and we want to increase the engagement, then maybe that comes back as a standing report out item here in this venue, okay? So, and we can also call special meetings. We're not just limited to quarterly. So if we're getting to critical times around certain milestones that we should be achieving in this, we can certainly talk about and get it on a special meeting, right?
So, to be clear, as the chair, I want to make a recommendation to make it a standing item to bring, because here's the thing, we need to have clarity from the commission, right? Granted, we're advisory. I agree, Jeff, we're not legislative, but we can give a consistent message to the council, and I would argue that is that, with the commission vote, that we want to make this a standing item, and ultimately, we are directly involved over the planning process of the rally into next year.
Certainly, there is a section in our agenda for staff and commission reports, so I can provide updates from the city side on rally. And then if there's nothing to update, I can certainly say, well, we don't have anything just yet.
Sure.
Right? So I can make it a standing item inside of that component, for sure.
No, but what I'm asking is for us to actually have a vote to ask the city council to basically make this part of our objectives as a commission.
Well, we're not going to always have a staff report and actionable items where we're taking that. What I'm saying is, so there's not necessarily an actionable item that we'd be making recommendation on. So again, what we can commit to is under staff and commissioner reports that we are giving you guys feedback as to what the latest city thoughts are on direction on
And then
the
participants
rally,
of
et
here can get
cetera.
updates
And
and we
then
can hear them.
we can look for opportunities. We can make suggestions to the council that as they're thinking about ad hoc committees and other things, reminding them that we have great expertise here in this commission too.
And it would be,
and
of
maybe
course, up
they-
to them to decide whether or
So
not
we-
they
Yeah,
don't.
no,
we just
but I
started.
don't think Jeff is hearing me. That's why I'm asking for a vote of the commission to bring that forward as an official.
I don't think we have the power to do that.
Yeah, it's an advisory vote. So so hear me out. As a commission, we have the right to make a consensus advisory recommendation, right? That's one message to the council that says, we would like to recommend that you guys basically adopt this as part of our process to make it an official standing item. And I would argue, actually,
That we
just
just
thinking
update on the
about it,
rally.
because I actually just had this conversation.
Which I think he said that we would, but it's obviously dependent on how hands-on the actual city council is with this item and whether or not they have anything to
Well, and
update.
that's the
also what they
point of a
decide to do with the rally too,
The
right?
staff, I'm hearing from the council that if you guys want to take a quick vote for majority, we can include it under one of two things. It won't always be an item like tonight where it's an actionable item and it's an engaged discussion with collecting recommendations to report out on. It can be part of the staff and commission report so that I'm reporting back so you guys have the status and we can have a little bit of interaction there as to let's consider bringing another actionable item that we can make
No, yeah, it's gonna die for lack of effort. I'm just saying, it's not consistent. To have you as the intermediary, Jeff, of this body, ultimately, all that means is it slows down the potential results, right? And technically speaking, the other recommendation, I know this because I actually had this conversation with a city council member, is we really should be having monthly meetings if we're serious. If we really are serious, quarterly is just not effective.
Okay.
There's no way, like,
We need to stick to the topic.
yeah, but
we have our
consistent with
purview.
that, that's my point, making it a standing item, asking the city council, because the other reality is them being a legislative body, they're overseeing the bigger picture over everything under them, including the committees.
I think I've
That's why our
addressed-
job is to implement the will of the city council. And ultimately that means.
I think I have addressed as staff that is supporting and administers this commission. I've said that we can have it on each agenda. It may not be an actionable item, but it will be covered under staff and commissioner
So we can touch
reports.
base on it every time.
So I'm agreeing
Yeah, I
with
mean-
you. I'm hearing the chair. And I'm saying that we can have it in one or two as we go forward in each meeting.
And Bill, that will allow us to try and keep you and all the other business owners up to date on anything that's going on with the rally progress and how it might affect things as we know. And of course, you can ask us any questions that we can then forward off to the city council so your concerns are heard.
The city council will hear a brief staff report. They're not going to get into the weeds. That's technically our job. And if there's not that intent for us to make it a standing item, then by default, that means it might or it might not come back, which means there's going to be a loss of translation. And all I'm saying is just from my experience, things die.
I
when you-
am
when you
also
push
up
things out.
for doing this more often so that I can try to be more
If we're going to
effective
take
in
this
here.
serious, if not, that's different.
But yeah, I'm amicable towards that if it's available.
It is. Yeah,
So-
it's just us saying, do we all agree, city council, can you please make this a standing item? You want us to be in charge of overseeing the implementation of this into this next year.
Well, again, the city council has their own purview in what they do and don't do, and they create ad hoc
I know, I
committees and
understand that.
and they direct. So
Advisory just means we're telling what we think. They could say no,
yeah,
but they could also say, thank you for bringing this forward. We didn't know that's your will, right? And all I'm saying is technically I'm speaking already what I know to be true as far as speaking to council folks or individuals. So that's fine. Like, I just want to make sure we don't get too bureaucratic with this because businesses don't work well with bureaucracy.
I guess I also just have a question. I think, if I understand correctly, that Jeff, the city council, in terms of what happens with the rally going forward next year or so on, they will be making decisions around, do we extend the duration, that type of thing. That would come from them, correct?
yeah.
And so-
Just provide information.
Yeah, but they look to us as the subject matter experts per se, because we're getting into the weeds of the details. Why would you extend it? Here's the reason, right? Because we have these very thorough conversations. If they see the rationale, then they're like, oh, that makes sense. But if they given out the advisory or the business commission wants to extend it, but we give no reason behind it, then they have 100 other things on their plate, right? Some agenda items have tons of pages behind them.
Yeah, my only
They're gonna
comment was,
graze over that.
so we had a lot of detailed discussion here. They get the benefit of that through the minutes, right, back to
If
them?
we bring it forward to them, 100%.
And staff will put together a staff report on the recommendations from the Business Advisory
Okay.
Commission.
And-
So I will
Yeah.
try to encapsulate as much of this in combination with the city clerk's office. We will try to come up and make sure that we accurately, as best we can, to represent majority of what the majority said they want to include as the recommendation. And
Okay.
We
so-
gather consensus of what the concern
Okay.
is and then propose a couple different solutions, and then it's up to the city council to
So-
go from there as to how they want.
If I just may add, if we wanted to do this accurately, I think I want to speak on behalf of the businesses. Would it be fair to say, can we, at some point, can we bring this up to council and say, to best, represent the business community and how they feel about this, and really sending an invite out to the business community and the businesses that participated for 4th of July, having them here, having them to be able to comment and say, then I feel like we can really accurately represent the business community, and then maybe we can leave it there and then have it coming back as, under staff and commission reports. But I think I would feel more comfortable if we're going to represent the business community. I would like to see a little bit more of the businesses that participated at the rally to be able to be here to voice their opinions and comments, to be able to accurately represent them and be able to fully give that report to council.
So Jeff, if you don't mind burning some copier ink and putting anything in writing that invites the business owners, when I can walk a little better, I don't mind canvassing up and down the street and inviting each and every business owner to come to these meetings when they are, full week ahead of whenever they are. If I could just get a stack of papers that I can hand out to business owners.
We could also send that out in our contacts as well. So
Yeah.
would love to help participate to bring in the businesses, because that's why we're here, to support them. And I would really love to see more businesses here, so we can help
Ideally,
support.
we'd have a little capture thing down on the bottom of it that they could click on with their phone, and then they would just get updates by text as to when we're going to do this, so that I don't have to wear out the bottom of my shoes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one is, the businesses should be mindful of the fact that the regular meetings of this commission body is quarterly. So the next meeting now would be August, September, October,
November.
Okay, so
You already burned the whole winter.
second Wednesday of,
It's gonna die. if there's no
Would we
serious
be
intent.
able to change that to monthly?
We can.
We could set special meetings. We don't have to stick to the quarterly. We could set a special
Okay.
meeting in a month or two.
Okay.
And
But-
then
well,
I would also caution against making it a standing item, because then it's not, the rally commission, it's business
Right.
advisory. You don't want to turn into a single subject commission.
no, it
so-
wouldn't be that. It would be one
You
item
could ask
on
to
the
bring
agenda.
it back for the next meeting and have a bigger discussion with the larger business community and see what you get out of that, and then see if there's a need for it repeating.
I mean, my hope is that the business commission drives this conversation, right? There's plenty of professionalism on this table or on this dais to understand what it's going to take to make not just the rally, but anything business successful. If we allow bureaucracy to get in the way, it's going to ultimately cause us to trip over ourselves and not get anything done. I know what it's like to be part of a monthly meeting, a monthly commission, or I know what it's part of a quarterly. I can guarantee you the quarterly, they die because you forget what the last 3 months even happened. And there's so much detail to business. I mean, the rally is a perfect example of it,
okay.
that it will die on its own.
So we're getting into different items. So if we want to bring.
No, we're
back
not. We're actually talking
No.
about specifically.
We need to go item by item.
Chair, I'm
Yeah.
going to disagree with you. If we're talking about the number of meetings we need to have and the content and that stuff, that's separate from this item. We've had a good positive discussion. We've gotten lots of good interaction on this item. Can we close this up and then let's engage in that?
All
later
I'm
in the
saying is-
agenda?
May I ask?
Like I said, I want to give my final point is I don't want to see business commissioners walk away from this commission. It will happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen if there's not a seriousness about why we're even here. Businesses like Peter and Steve and Adam have 100 other hats that they're wearing, and they're not going to come back if they're not going to see fruitfulness.
May I ask
Chair.
two questions?
Can we move that discussion to under staff and commissioner reports and finish up with this item?
Yep.
We need to stay on our agenda.
May I ask two quick questions? Is it possible to move into the agenda to have this discussion to where we can do these more frequently? And do you have the bandwidth to do them more frequently?
Yeah.
Okay, then
Later in the agenda.
perfect.
Yeah.
Then we'll discuss it
Let's
later in the
finish up
agenda and we'll put it
with this,
on
please.
for a vote.
I'll make a recommendation
Yeah.
at the end of the
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're on to item number 5.3, discuss the downtown district and suggestions to make the downtown district a fall destination. There's a lot of details to this. I know Jeff will give the staff report on what that means. I'll give a couple of my thoughts, but ultimately, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, well, just as the agenda breaks down here, the kinds of leading thoughts that we had were like, okay, downtown lighting could be improved, maybe, something like incorporating bands or DJs and then maybe some themes for kind of our San Benito corridor as that, as we move towards the fall. And so that's kind of where we're listening to suggestions on that.
Yeah, I have lots of ideas, and I'm bummed that Omar is not here. What I would like to see and what I've gotten back from community is that would be fantastic, having our own version of like Christmas in the Park for downtown. We have a great historic downtown, and we need to really use that to our advantage. Incorporating businesses, bringing our community downtown, making it walkable. So I think that's a great idea if we can have the discussion to incorporate that. That means having, tying it into the Lights On celebration. Let's do a tree lighting. Let's have, organizations, nonprofits, charities, let them have them decorate trees. Let's have that featured downtown. Can we use some of the vacant lots there? Can we rent that? Can we put the trees there? Carriage rides. I mean, we have hay rides, apple cider rides. We live in a farming community, and we can get horses, we can get carriages, we can get hay rides, we can bring people downtown. We can get people to stay downtown. Storefront decorating. I think the biggest thing is we want downtown to be walkable. And I think if we create these events in like the fall, doing like Oktoberfest, like you said, I think there's so many ideas that we could really pull together, but incorporate the business community and have them here as part of the conversation to be able to really bring that to life and get them excited about business time in the fall and shopping. I know I'm sure you would love to see people coming to buy books and spending time at your bookstore during the holidays, right? Incorporating cocoa, stops, having a mug. I think there's just so much that we're leaving on the table that I think, really utilizing this commission to be able to really put things forward and just execute on them and really just I think these ideas are great, and I just would love to be able to see them come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, there's only so much energy we have, I think, and I think there are certainly, in terms of other events in the fall, I'm all for it. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I think we need to decide what would make the most sense to investigate and go after. And then put some real energy into it. So something like Dia de los Muertos, right, is I think a very popular event. I know in San Juan Bautista, where my wife is from, and we've been very involved there with the teatro, and there's a lot of community participation and a lot of great things. There's a parade that happens as part of it. Our food truck has been part of it, so that's why I know about it. But it's very actively supported by the community. And it's something that I think we could do a lot with. So I think picking a couple of events like that, or dates on the calendar where we can bring in some real community support and do a lot with it, make a lot of sense. But I think you got to decide which of those makes the most sense and then go after them. And then you can always expand it in future years. But I would much rather pick a couple of things we want to do and make them really successful than get diluted, I guess is kind of my point.
The first thing we need to do is we need to make the downtown more walkable. Back when Ignacio was the mayor, one of the problems that we had was we had a fair amount of crime happening at night on San Benito Street. And there was a discussion as to, how to fund getting more police there. And I said, you just really need to take an example from San Luis Obispo. If you go down there, there's lighting everywhere, and bullies don't like an audience. So I actually went with a bunch of other business owners, and we started wrapping the trees ourselves with Home Depot Christmas lights. And then they got a contract out. And that's what needs to be kind of updated, is we do need to, first and foremost, we need to update and increase the lighting downtown. Secondly, I like the idea of having like the hay rides. We do need to use all of our community resources, like Matt at Only the Honorable Inc., who already had a trunk or treat event where the lowriders would come down and give kids, and they're providing. All they need is the parking spots. It costs the city nothing to provide a safe place for kids to get that. I like the idea of having like the beer and wine stroll set up with something where we have carriages, where people could jump on the carriages and do like a hayride. I think we could also do like a pumpkin carving contest very easily and at very little expense. We could probably get the business owners or something like that to buy 20 pumpkins from J&B Farms or something like that and have, you know, a pumpkin carving contest amongst the different businesses and see who has the best one. These are very easy things to do that we can put back on the people of the city. As you mentioned with San Juan Bautista, it's primarily civic driven. And so it's just a matter of us just going and talking to the business owners and seeing, what do you want to do this fall? And then seeing if the city would be amicable towards cleaning up all the horse poop if we were to do that, and finding a way to ensure the event, because where there's horses, there's problems. So that would be the only liability, but I do believe it would be awesome to have some sort of a fall event that really honors our history in terms of giving us an identity as a primarily farming community. That's where we should, at Harvest, bring out our culture and celebrate our culture, because otherwise, if we don't, we're just another town with strip malls.
And so, and all good comments. To put it in context a little bit, I know that part of this conversation, definitely with the lighting, was to address ultimately the downtown, the vibrancy, right? To make it safer,
Lighting
right?
is
Because
first.
increased lights by default creates more visibility, less attraction to people that are trying to do bad things. But economic development wise, I mean, Peter mentioned Ignacio, and I used to joke with him that we're like the Radiator Springs of San Benito County, right? I don't know if you guys remember the movie Cars, right? Kids, I still have little ones, but the whole point is 25 did a you know, a big do-over on the downtown vibrancy, right? There's not as much economic development. People have less of a reason. Now that you have a bypass, that's created a negative effect. So the economic development in our downtown is really suffering. And the whole idea is to not even just make it a one thing, but more of a season where there's kind of certain pieces in place. These are all infrastructure type pieces, things that the city's slowly administering, right? Even the permitting process, you're also dealing with code enforcement. All those things need to be addressed ahead of time so that these things are happening organically without any hiccups, any, you know, liability issues or whatever, right? Whatever that means. So that's where the conversation basically started, and making the downtown, and, you know, I had heard even considering like maybe after 6 o'clock, just shutting down the street, allowing fire pits downtown, things like events like what Christina mentioned, to infill and ultimately create that vibrancy. But all this would have to be pre-programmed and even marketed ahead of time,
Charlie might
so
have
that
a problem with the
the
fire
business
pits.
community would want to, the consumer part of our community would see it and want to be a part of it, and obviously plan their day so that they could be a part of it. That's basically the gist of the conversation, and you guys are mentioning some good thoughts about how to make that happen. Adam?
The only thing that I noticed is that there's certain communities that have something like a candy cane lane. I think Monterey or Pacific Grove, one of those has the whole community that comes together. Now that's in a park and it's got a surrounding area. It's in a residential area, but I like the idea of incorporating a lot of these ideas into one unified event. And it could be an ongoing event, could be a month-long thing. But, you know, you had mentioned there was if we could do a tree lighting or tree decorating, and that actually already takes place at the Veterans Memorial Building.
Lights on Parade pretty much takes care of that.
Right. But the problem that I'm noticing is we also have like a ice rink that pops
The
up.
skating
right?
rink, yeah.
Yeah, skating rink. Yeah.
That's what
And so all these different things are wonderful, but they're all individuals separated. And I think if we can unify it somehow and put groups together, we have a wonderful thing down at Bellotto Park. That's ran by an event organization that is putting this together. And so just throwing out different ideas that if we can incorporate it all into
I think they
whatever,
have like Christmas plays and stuff at the Granada too, right? Or something.
not sure on that.
Either way, to your point,
I think
like
a skating
creating
rink.
some kind of a network that's talking about these very things so that we're not,
First and
You know-
foremost, though, I do think we need to get the lighting resolved downtown to make it walkable,
that is
safe.
number one, yeah.
That would be the strongest recommendation that I could think of that would make the biggest difference. Beyond that, if there were Christmas decorations that, you know, the city wanted to do some little decorations on those little poles that have the veterans on them or something like that, wrap a pole with something would look nice. Last about a week down here though. But having an event that is community-based, like the trunk or treat type of event, or when we do the lights on parade, having the cars themselves have Christmas lights on them or something like that would also be a cool thing. I like the idea of having a specific harvest type festival event where we do something like the beer and wine stroll or something like that, but you could actually jump on a cart and go from place to place or something like that. But
Tie
again,
that
that's liability.
Oktoberfest in maybe to Harvard.
Yeah,
I
we should
think there
definitely
was
have an
like, even with
Oktoberfest.
the trunk or treat, wasn't there like some kind of a, issue? Because they tried to do it and there was some kind of a, like, they didn't have a permit or something. And that's a big downer, right? Then at that point, it's
So all
like,
the cars were legally parked, but the police department did have a problem because they were given a complaint that they were doing the trunk or treat without a permit. And it is somewhat of an event. We can run that through the Hollister Downtown Association
that's
this
the
time. That
point,
was my
yeah.
recommendation back then. I've introduced Omar with the entity that provides that. And I think that's the direction that they're going to go. And thank God we've got him here on the council, because now we can forward a lot of these events through the Downtown Association as we come up with them. But again, I think the strongest thing that we could do for downtown is improve the lighting. And I think that's first and foremost in the agenda, because before we can have events down there, it needs to feel safe for a person to walk his family down there.
yeah. More lighting would be amazing. Monterey's like, it's like day almost, it feels like when you walk there
Do
down.
we have suggestions? Because I believe the current lighting, the additional lighting that's on
Needs to be
goes
repaired
like
and-
on
and
the
updated.
trees and stuff, right? So do we have
I
other
think we-
suggestions than just the trees?
Well, I think we have shepherd's poles that are mostly halogen, which are not only more expensive energy wise, but they're also they're not as bright, right? Because you can control LED lighting better. So if there's a way to, I actually had heard from the prior city manager that they had already purchased the lights or something, they just needed to install them. But regardless of the fact, you almost have to try to assume how you want the downtown lighting to look like, and then that way you infill it with whatever that is.
My understanding is there was a maintenance contract with the initial install. I'm not sure if that's still the case or not, but all of the trees need sprucing up a little bit because some of the wires have fallen and things like that. So the first thing I would do is find out whether or not it's actionable to rely on that contract to have them just fix what's there and repair what's there. And then you have a zigzag going across there. And I would see if it's possible to over double that crisscrossing. If you give more light to it, it just really will. You already have one string that just zigzags across the street. You just need one more doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right, ultimately through October, November into December, you have kind of this like slowdown effect that's happening, right? Because people
Then the
get
sun's
into
going to start going down sooner.
Yeah, so creating a positive outcome out of that, turning it into where the lighting gets put up, and then all these things, even just creating that network, and then have the chamber and the HDA work together, try to come up with maybe some plan for some kind of festivities or events, right? Or even just creating the network where they're working together, and then that even gets messaged through the business community. I think would have an amazing effect. A lot of people don't even know things are happening when they are happening, and very good things that are happening.
I think trying to motivate people to want to come downtown pretty much as part of a social engagement, right? So maybe that looks like, yes, you want to have events with themes going on, but those are going to be like one or two just because it's a heavy lift by somebody, whether it's the city or whether it's Hollister Downtown Association or it's led by the chamber, or if we get volunteer groups from all the businesses, it's going to be a heavy lift by somebody. So what about thinking about like music that would add to that, maybe some fire pits or something like that?
Yeah.
Around the Vets Hall building? You've got a nice front to the building there, and it's well lit right there in front of the building, right? So if you had like different themed bands every weekend on a rotation that would come and play from like 7 p.m. till 10:30, 11 p.m., and you added some fire pits and you had some chairs there, and then maybe we have a food truck that pulls up and serves hot chocolate or something like that, if that's not available around by the businesses currently. Anything to get people to walk down there, because the idea is if you get them there, then.
There
maybe
is
they
too
start
much, actually, that's a
walking.
good part of the conversation. There is a lot of dead space downtown in the evenings.
I would say as a venue owner, I would be resistant to creating a publicly ran venue that is in competition with privately owned venues. I think that, again, if we give a little razzle dazzle of lighting to downtown, that'll be enough reason for people to want to go down there. And then, of course, we can incentivize individual business owners to have events going on in conjunction with the Hollister Downtown Association, something like the beer and wine stroll, or something similar to that, a harvest kind of thing, with, you know, carving pumpkins or something like that, and have a pumpkin carving contest.
I'm certainly not suggesting that we compete like with
Yeah, I mean,
selling
you could easily
necessarily,
create-
but I'm saying like if you had bands there at,
festival
let's say if
downtown.
we utilize the Vets Hall building, it's a beautiful venue, right?
It is,
It seems to be an underutilized, and that also draws people from both ends of kind of from South Street, from 4th Street,
Sure.
to come and walk that, so it gives the opportunity for other businesses to get their business as they're strolling too. So the idea of like, if you just had a committed series of bands that were set to come there, so people could come and sit from 7 p.m. to 10:30, let's say. Now they're going to enjoy the band for a while. When they get cool, they get hungry, they want to get food, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
So
I've found that those events generally tend to benefit the businesses that are within about one block. Beyond that, where the groups of people are, because people like to be within crowds, when the crowd thins out, so does the business participation, which is why I'm still kind of a proponent of fixing the lighting and then creating something where you have to move from venue to venue in order to take part of the event, which could be judging a pumpkin carving contest or participating in a beer and wine stroll type of a thing, but something that all the business owners can unify in an event. I'm not against having live bands out downtown and having some sort of a thing like, say, with the farmer's market or something like that, where you give a theatric event to there being something downtown. But I think what's more sustainable is to put it back onto the individual business owners in the community to say, hey, we would like to do an event in this, time frame. We would like your participation in it. Buy-in is as cheap as buying 10 pumpkins. And we'll have, people and kids come over and everything like that. And you can bring your ticket over for a drink or a coupon or something like that.
But I do believe, really quick, agreeing a little bit with Jeff, if you had downtown, like if you had some kind of food trucks in creating a non-compete clause or something, right? You're not going to allow anything that's already there, right? If there's Mexican food, obviously you wouldn't have that, but something that might eat.
Well, that doesn't sound like half the food trucks.
Well, all I'm saying is, yeah, I mean, regardless of that, you're right. I know for me, I would have never even touched the brick and mortar if I hadn't built like through years of, getting out in the open, right, where people see me. That takes a lot of risk, right? A lot of people, it's hard for them to assume that risk and then all of a sudden get into brick and mortar, which automatically becomes a hole for cost. But if you create that opportunity, give them some visibility, they actually get some traction, they understand their market. Before you know it, they get comfortable. Then all of a sudden, they're the ones filling in the place.
Yeah.
Steve, I think, is a perfect example of that.
Well, I think there's models for what's been successful in this area. I don't know if you guys went to the beer and wine stroll in San Juan Bautista. It was 2 or 3 years ago. It was put on by the Spirit of San Juan. It was incredibly successful, and it was incredibly successful because they integrated it in with the businesses. So they had like a dozen different venues, and each venue was in a business. And so you had a wine vendor that partnered with a business. So you would go,
Similar to our existing beer and wine stroll right now, but what we should do is in Oktoberfest 1. When is the beer and wine stroll now?
May.
May.
Yeah,
So-
that's
So we need to do another one.
Right.
And that would be a harvest time festival, exact same venue, exact same format. We can bring in everything in terms of food trucks and everything like that. But I do agree that, a band at that time may be appropriate in setting up a whole festival downtown. But I'm going to go back to lighting again. The first and foremost thing that would attract people downtown is if it was really well lit and
Right.
sparkled. That's going to be your long-lasting best bang for the buck revenues spent, because people are already going to be going down because it's brighter and there's something to see. Then you throw an event on top of that, you'll have more people showing up to the event.
So just to kind of add to the lighting, I know, of course, lighting is phenomenal, but what I do want to add is some of the lighting on the side streets, although it would help with the city, but some of those, for example, by the chamber, it's the landlord thing. Some of the buildings, some of them, the lighting is not working. The lights have gone out, and I'm at the office late, and so when I'm looking down some of the side streets at some of the businesses, but some of them that do have the brick and mortar, part of it is landlord, and some of them do have lighting provided, which is pretty bright on some of the side streets. But again, it's getting into your landlord and making sure that those lights are lit, they're being maintained, aside from additional lighting. But to go back to Jeff's point, we are in a good area where we can see really great models for our Thursday night music series, Friday night music series, and they're successful. So there's no reason why we can't mirror that. And really, for example, one of our sister chambers down the street, they put on a successful Friday night music series that is extremely well attended. I've attended just to kind of really see the outpour of community members and the vendors there and where they have it. We could easily mirror something like that here and do it at Dunn Park. Have a music night series at
Dunn Park's too far away from the downtown businesses.
Well, of course, but if we're looking at even incorporating other businesses, we don't want to take away from downtown, because the idea and the goal is to make downtown walkable and to create more foot traffic there, so that way businesses, can see that foot traffic. But again, we're here to be able to really be creative and to see what's really going to work for businesses overall and the community and what we can bring to the community, but also tying in our businesses. So I think at the end of the day, we can sit here and we can talk about all the fantastic ideas that we all have. But I think at this point, what we need to do is we really need to lock it in and say, okay, well, we have, 4 seasons a year. We can all agree that we would like to see something for Christmas. We'd all like to agree that we'd see something for harvest. We have the wine and beer show, which is something we can do in May. Can we do like a taste of San Benito, which I've talked about doing with the chamber, and bringing that back. So that's something that I'm working on currently.
And that would be more than just like,
Right.
it'd be different businesses.
Right. No, this is featuring our current wineries, featuring our restaurants, featuring the businesses that we already have locally and making sure that they're highlighted. So this is something that I've already been working on the side. But again, I think the biggest thing here is I don't want us to get too carried away, because we can all have great ideas and I know we have the best intentions for our businesses. But I think right now, the most important thing is I really would like to see us say, okay, let's put this down on paper. We all agree X, we all agree Y in this season, and let's really start putting some collaborative efforts behind it to see how we can agree to say, okay, next meeting, let's talk about ironing out what we really want to do and what we really want to see, and let's start putting some action behind it. I think just really narrowing down what would be best and our thoughts for community-wide, but also business sense.
I think ultimately, to package it before I forget, and I've mentioned this because I know it will become an issue. If you think so, downtown, just so for those that don't know, it's mixed use, right? Which means there's commercial, but there's also residential. And with mixed use, you're going to have tenants, and I've actually heard some properties, I think Bill's old property, if it turns into an apartment complex, we invite those folks to come downtown, but it's also a disclosure element that's very necessary so that you don't have nuisance. The hard part about nuisance too, which I know you have a lot of experience with, Peter, is it's very ambiguous and it requires police to respond. Technically, it usually sides with the complainer, and that's I think it's unfair sometimes. Regardless of that, that's why you have to create these protections. And I think maybe moving in the direction of making the downtown an entertainment district, where there is these things tied into it. They could even be part of the disclosure elements. Anybody who rents, by the way, here's your disclosure. And then also securing even a level of decibels, so that way there's continuity with the businesses.
And I'd like to add to that, I've got a quarter century producing concerts and events and everything like that. And I can tell you, if you have a a permanent amphitheater, permanent stage area set up, it reduced the costs of those events significantly. If you're constantly bringing in the infrastructure for staging and lighting and power and everything like that, you're really going to be hard pressed to see your dollar back against what it costs to produce such an event. There is a spot, and I know it's been right next to McKinnon Lumber across the street from the Chevron station. There's a person that owns that property that hasn't really wanted to utilize it before, but I think if we were ever going to create a permanent stage type setup where we could just have power and even a concrete stage or something set up where we could utilize something like this, that would be a good center facing at a 45-degree angle back towards everything where you could do this cost effectively. Otherwise, if you have to try and set up stage right staging and then amperage and everything like that, you're going to have a hard time being able to do a concert series or bands or anything like that and have it not cost quite a bit of money, because it's a lot of labor to set that stuff up and take down. That's what I've been doing since I was 17 years old, and I'm 50 now. So one of the things that I would like to address just in that, if we want to have that, one of the first things we should figure out is where can we set that up? Where can we leave semi-permanent staging set up where we can do that and just return to that area and just set up the next band?
Would you agree this would be seasonal?
It could be done throughout the whole course of the year, obviously during the rainy season, no.
Yeah.
Most bands also would kind of require, and it's also a safety thing, because you do have 70 volts running through these things, and if you're plugged into something that's in a different circuit and you're holding on to a guitar, there's 70 volts running through that, and if they're on separate circuits and you touch your lip to that, you get a little shock, and if it's rainy, you get a little bit more of a shock. So there's ways to do it, and there's ways to not do it, and that would be one of the things that we would really need to look into, is what's the most cost-effective way where we could set up a semi-permanent structure for entertaining and for addressing the downtown, which may also have some component of shade on the top of it for the bands, just in case it rains or something like that, because you have electric equipment there.
So I think, again, we're kind of getting into longer term suggestions as to how we like incorporate like music type events
Bands,
for the
yes.
greater community.
Yeah.
I think so that's probably something long term, because we probably need to look at where's the right venue for that.
That's what I'm saying,
Like
step
there's
one.
all of these considerations
Step
to
one.
really make it work right. So just for time essence, can we
think
go
we're
back
pretty
to again, so within the downtown corridor, so from basically Monterey to East, South to Fourth, maybe even up to Third, where within that, do we think it's helpful to get people to just want to come down on a Friday or a Saturday night and just participate, walk the street and come down? Do you think it's helpful to have maybe like a band at a venue, something like utilizing maybe the front of the Vets Hall building, or maybe it turns into you target a certain band and you run them for 3 nights in a row, and then maybe we open it up for DJ competition so it attracts a little different group or something, you know, like what I'm saying,
I hear you.
because maybe you're trying to get a different demographic, and so maybe you can do that, but do you think that's going to result in making the downtown, so if we increase lighting, you know,
For the amount of money that you would spend on 2 bands, and of course, we'd have to run this by fire and see if they'd be okay with it. You know, we could drop hay bales up down the street and put pumpkins that people could just grab and start carving for free. And on a day, we could just have a decoration of all the fall themed things, and grab a pumpkin, and here's a little plastic pumpkin carving kit, and then go to the Vets Hall with your carved pumpkins. It's all free. And I think that would be amazing. That would theme the entire downtown towards harvest. Obviously, we're the hay balers. We've got enough hay. And if we just had hay bales with pumpkins on them, the little pumpkin carving kits, and at 6 p.m., bring your carved pumpkin and come downtown, would probably be one of the cheapest, most cost-effective things to create one of the most memorable experiences you could, bang for buck wise.
But this would just be singled out to just like a harvest festival.
Just
right?
that
Yeah,
one
yeah,
particular
yeah.
event, just to make that happen. The
I see you
cheapest,
love
quickest,
pumpkins.
easiest way to just make that happen would be that.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. But I just kind of going back to the music series, so we could, I know for to be sensitive of time is, but in my experience of, I do attend a lot of like music series and things like that throughout, Los Gatos, Campbell, here, there. I frequent a lot of them, and I do that for my own, I've been doing it for years. And I find that seasonally is usually better. Because if you're doing it consistently over and over and over again, the crowd that you're going to draw is probably not as significant as if it was, you create FOMO. So if it's like, if it's just like, for example, Gilroy or there's Thursday night music series, it's done with X amount of weeks. Or even in Morgan Hill, it's only for like, a couple of weeks. So I just think, so it drives down cost and bring your own chair, BYOC, bring your own chair. So that eliminates having to set that up all the time
We
and
definitely don't need
clean
to drive
up.
chairs for anybody up. I'm just saying, as a guy who's literally pushed in all of the shows for
Yeah.
Eagles, Elton John, Kai Mani Marley, Damian Marley, Black Sabbath. It's the cost of setting up the infrastructure that the band is on, which becomes the thing that we needs to be identified first. So if we wanted to do something like that, we would want to identify where our venue can be utilized on a regular basis, where we can leave up some semi-permanent staging that can live there, and where we have 2 phases of power with about 90 amps per that we can set a band up at. And then from there, you're good. But we just got to identify where we have that kind of power, where we have the place where we can level the stage and set up a semi-permanent stage. Once you have that set up and that place, go for it. I would recommend doing concerts around the 15th of the month. We saw the highest revenue return on any concert, whether it was reggae or whether it was rock, because at the first of the month, everybody just paid rent. At the last of the month, everybody's saving up to pay rent. That most expendable paycheck is around the 15th of the month, and you're going to see the highest return on people showing up to your event because that's their burner paycheck, where they have the money to go out and do something. So events that usually happen around the middle of the month tend to be more well attended.
Awesome. Good stuff. I mean, I know this is mostly discussion, right? We can get into staff and commissioner reports to maybe make recommendations. I think it'd be a good idea to consider, like I mentioned, us being an entertainment district, because that kind of creates, I think, the conversation of all these pieces that you're talking
But
about.
who fits the bill for the entertainment thing? If the city has to fit that bill, the first thing we need to do is figure out a way to.
No, so an entertainment district is just a zoning change.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's not like money per se, it's just, there's
Just
time with
allows us
staff.
to make noise and everybody else has to do
So
it.
for example,
It's
if we're
the
looking at this
administrative
current
work.
map right here, so just as a prime example, if we take this along with ABC and we take it to council, and for example, from 4th Street down to 7th Street, East Street and Monterey, let's just use this as an example. That would be our entertainment district. So if we wanted to have an Oktoberfest, if we wanted to incorporate, doing like having all of our businesses and bars participate, you have a wristband at Johnny's and you card them, and then they can go ahead and take that beer on to the next spot while we have vendors, right? So that would include like noise as well as being able to carry a beverage
lot of-
We'd have
in
to
their
talk to
hand.
PD about that. Then
Well,
so California ABC really kind of, and the PD would need to sign off on that because that's a real gray area of walking around with alcohol outside.
Right, so it would be mapped off. So if you're having an event, then it would be barricaded off typically, or there would be security at the end of
the
that
barricade,
district. So for example, downtown San Jose recently did their entertainment district along with the Santana Row district. And what they did is so the SOFA district, which is right along the lines of where Original Joe's is. And
And everybody's wristbanded.
everybody's wristbanded. So Santana Row has done this as well. And as much as it sounds complex, it's actually very beneficial. So, if we're looking at other cities, larger cities with larger populations.
I'm all about it.
Oh, no, for sure.
Like Reynosa's not going
Yeah.
to be happy with
Yeah.
that, and ABC may be also. a little, in California, I found that alcohol beverage control is a little, depending on what they hear back from PD as to whether or not they expect there may be a problem or not. It really kind of comes down to permission of the
Yeah,
police chief.
I think-
So if you can get him to sign off on it, then
It would ultimately be consistent with code, fire department, police, ABC. It would be a district that defines a boundary and also is for specific purposes. And it would also inform code enforcement of any amendments that need to be made, zoning, like even when it comes
I'm all
to
about it. And if
Yeah,
you needed a venue, I know-
hours, noise, or nuisance elements, right, which could be a certain decibel level, all that's all tied into it.
right.
So if we wanted to kind of, let's say, switch up the wine and beer stroll, but also have vendors. So basically we would have, let's just say, our entertainment district in place. So they're going to come to your spot, they're going to go to Catrina's, they're going to go down the street. And if they already have that wristband, then they can continue with it and they can move on to the next area. Or if we have like a farmer's market, or if we have Taste of San Benito that I would love to bring back.
All of which I'm 100%
If all of it, then we can actually walk around with our wine. You know, downtown Campbell has a successful Oktoberfest where you could walk around with your beverage. Downtown Los Gatos has it super successful. You know, San Jose Sofa District, they just implemented it within a couple of months. And we know that that'll drive people downtown.
Yeah, ultimately, I think the thing that it's going to come down to, and I cannot speak for the police department, but whose liability is it if somebody hands alcohol to a minor outside of a venue? If that happens inside my venue, then it's my liability, so I'm going to be watching it like a hawk. I'm all for it. I just think that you may hear back from law enforcement that like, okay, well, who is then going to police making sure that alcohol doesn't get passed off
All
on
of that
minors?
would be
And that
taken
may add an increased cost of having some security there to police something like that. I'm sure.
Yeah, security will
Probably
always
have
be around.
insurance declarations and all that, yeah.
So
We're getting into the weeds.
it's good conversation,
Yeah.
but we need to keep it back into a little bit of focus here, and then we need to take public comment, and we're coming.
Yeah, we
up
can,
on
we
about
can
time.
Yeah.
call the meeting,
Bill, what do you think? Well,
Yeah,
let's give you 6.
Chair, you should.
three.
call
Yeah.
comment.
So we can have public comment,
Bill?
right now, 7:50. Go ahead, Bill.
No problem. Again, it's great. All these ideas are great. Not against anything. Peter, I counted 9 times lighting. 8 years ago, I went before the city council and said, hey, side streets, my street, no Christmas tree lights. I championed the cause, got it done for all the businesses and everybody that's on the side streets. So where you see the brick pavers and the shepherd poles, I consider that to be the downtown district, and the city council realized that that's the downtown district. I sent a picture up there of downtown Disney and the side streets.
Right.
Main Street got everything. They have all the lights. We get nothing. We're just, like I said, not treated the same fashion. So if Peter mentions 8 times about lights, I want to see lights down on my side street and on front of my store as well, because I think it's only fair that if we're doing everything for downtown, we're still considered downtown district. Sometimes we feel neglected. I speak it for a lot of people because they couldn't be here tonight. So as we go forward, again, great ideas. We have our 2 events a year. Adam has events every year too as well. We try to work with everybody as possible. Sometimes, it's individual. You get 2,000 people for pre-comic day. It's great. In the meantime, just don't forget about the other businesses, because everybody's going downtown. They have the parklets, the lights. We get the street closures. We get no lights. So make sure when you point to everybody that you just make sure that don't forget about us. We have the pavers, we have the shepherd lights, and we're not treated in the same fashion. So make sure that Christina brought up about the lights. Took an act of God to get my trees trimmed. What did I do? I got a guy to come and do them. $500 fine because I called the city over and over. Take care of your crepe myrtles. Our lights, our secure lights, are not picking up the people that are defecating on my sidewalk or leaving their garbage. $500 fine. We put up our own lights one time, like Peter said, wrapped around. $200 permit fine. So in the meantime, the city has a lot of handcuffing. So make sure when you do things, you do it the right way. But in the meantime, we're just trying to do it our way. And if we don't hear it, we try to do it on our own. But as for the lights, we have outside lights. They are not visible because of the crepe myrtle trees the city planted. Alex Flores is great, but he says we're on a 3-year rotation. Those trees are growing every year. So in the meantime, lights, Chamber of Commerce, whatever, tell people that the city can come by and trim them yearly at least, because that's a problem. We have the lights, but we can't see anything. So in the meantime, I'm just trying to let everybody know that all these ideas are great, but just don't forget about everybody else because it's on Main Street. I know we get feeder traffic. We're getting the traffic from everything that's going on. It's good. But when you close streets off, that says you're kind of closed or you're not really open. So in the meantime, so make sure it's open events, lights are going on, and the side streets and 4th Street are still getting the same thing as downtown. That's all. Just want the same thing as everybody else would want. Just like Peter for your business and everything else. Not against anything. Just want to make sure that when you take things forward, that you don't forget about us too.
Thanks, Bill.
I waited for that time, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thankfully, we're not politicians, we're also business owners like ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
You know me, Peter, I've been doing this for a while.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Speak your mind, just let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're closing off this final thoughts. I appreciate everything that was said. Buy-in is very important. I do believe that's going to be part of the conversation. Obviously, disclosures to the business community to create that buy-in.
I think
So-
as a safety measure as well, it's also important to light the side streets because
I was just thinking that.
it's one thing to have one street where everything's lit, but a lot of the people are parking on those side streets. And, if I've got somebody with me that doesn't feel comfortable where we're parking, I'm very unlikely to get that person to return with me. So if we can make the entirety of downtown, and it extends out to those side streets where people park, well lit and to feel safe, that reduces the load on the police to be able to need to have that presence. It also helps them identify suspects if they're looking for them. And that was one of our major selling points when we started putting in the lighting anyway, is it's a lot easier to see what's going on, and people don't like to do shady things where there's less shade.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I know there's some dark spots in between streets. In alleys, actually, big dark spots, bad things could easily happen. Or even like just homeless folks doing things they shouldn't be doing in these alleys. So all really good stuff. This is obviously getting into the weeds, but to the point, feeding into the parking area, I think this lighting is going to be very, very important. So we'll, if no one else has any other thoughts, I'd like to close this item, but we really should, hopefully we're taking good notes because this is all good stuff that we could follow.
I know I said
follow up
lighting,
for
but if I
next
can
time.
one more time, just say lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest thing that we could do. And if there's any stronger recommendation I could make from.
Lighting will be the
talked about,
catalyst of a
That
lot
would
of good
have to be
stuff.
to top priority would be lighting.
Yeah.
It'd be the catalyst of a lot of good stuff. So on to item number 6, staff and commissioner reports. This is where you're reporting out anything that you, final thoughts. But I know for me, I want to recommend that we basically ask the city council to consider this. The rally itself. I also want, hopefully they would be amenable to us wanting to get a little bit more into the details of all these conversations, which I think why we should have more than one meeting a quarter. I know it's staff time. I get it. I understand. But yeah, if we want to see some serious change, I just know for me, when I'm too far away from my business, things start to fall apart. And I think this is the business of the community that we want to do. So those are my thoughts.
And if you could just take a picture of me back here looking all official and everything like that, send it to us.
I think a good, if I could recommend, if we could agree to, I mean, at least just kind of schedule a special meeting for next month. I think in all fairness, again, I would like to give the business community an opportunity to
Yes,
be
we
able
don't
to
know what we
understand what we're doing, why we're
yeah.
doing. I would like to recommend if we can actually schedule a special meeting for next month so we can catch all of our businesses up to speed. So we all have an understanding of where we're going from here and an understanding of our goals and how big of an importance it is for them to be here. And I think for them not being here today, I don't want them to feel left out. I don't want them to feel that they didn't have a say. So if we can really market it, I would like to send it out to my businesses and my members, as well as I'm sure Omar, just between us alone, we could tackle at least, 500 to 600 businesses to be able to at least give them an opportunity to attend.
If it would be possible to have some sort of a printed thing that says when our next meeting is, and with a little captcha thing down there that gives people all of the appropriate links and signs their phone up for text messages and things like that. I don't know if we have the infrastructure to do that, but if we do have a thing that lets them know there's a meeting, I'd be happy to hand walk each one of those things and then get people electronically connected to the city so they know when these meetings are and how to participate.
Again, unfortunately, we don't have control of resources. I appreciate the suggestions. One of the first things we can do is just by word of mouth, getting out that there is an active business advisory commission now, because before I got assigned to administer it, I don't believe it's ever met. So we had our first meeting in June. You know, unfortunately, everybody takes the month of July off. And so now we're here at August. This was the next regular meeting. I think there are certain timeframes where a special meeting makes sense because of
We're going to be going into the
wanting
fall
to
season.
advise and recommend on certain items. So
Yeah. I mean, to your point, Jeff, I agree. I think if we can maybe make a recommendation for a special meeting next month, and add, potential considerations going into the fall, and maybe just some simple items like maybe, seeing if we can ask the city council, to consider lighting, or what that would take. I don't know if that was just an administrative task, or we have to get them to vote on to support it. I don't know.
So quickly to summarize, then I'm hearing a request from commission to hold another special meeting next month and include again business input on the rally so that we can hopefully get
Effectively,
more engagement.
And especially as we
Okay.
get closer to those October type events, we can get a lot more participation from the individual business owners and allow them to bring some of the resources to the table.
I mean, would it be possible actually, if we do have that officially, then once we get a date certain, right, whatever that looks next month?
Well, typically when you have a special meeting, you do it on the same.
So if that's the
Like
case-
the Wednesday that you would have for your regular meeting. So in this case, if we're doing it, it would be the second Wednesday of the month.
So if we
Which
did
would be
that, then
September 9th.
could we maybe get the chamber,
That's not gonna work because I've got an airport advisory commission.
What about the 16th of September?
Let's see, no, we're the third.
See, we're the 3rd. It's
Clerk-
actually the 3rd
We're
Wednesday.
the third Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the next meeting would
So
be
then it
September
would be
16th.
September?
September 16th.
Does it have to be a Wednesday? Or,
Typically it's supposed to land on the same day.
And then
I'm just
I,
thinking, because Omar probably is going to have the same.
Oh, yeah.
oh, that's right. Okay.
He's pretty important to this conference. I mean, he's,
I think so too. I mean, my recommendation I was gonna make is to see if we can get something to be able to message to the business community. If you guys were able to create, because all it is really the links to the agenda. And then ultimately, somehow,
What we actually need is we actually need somebody to manage an email blast list
I
for
can-
your community businesses. And then when staff sends out the agenda packet, you all forward it to the blast list.
That's where that,
Yeah.
that's where that CAPTCHA thing could come in. If-
Yeah, there is a way for the people to sign up to get notifications about agendas.
Right now, specifically to council agendas,
Okay.
but we could contact them to create.
all I'm saying is, because this could be just a flyer with links, and I think the chamber, either or the HDA could probably.
We could do
a good
those,
job.
yeah.
You already have a system in place.
We have a system in place already.
Yeah.
Which we have it to over 4,000 emails, as well as our current chamber members, which we send information to, so we can
Guess
do
what
that
you
as
just
well. as-
volunteered yourself for.
I don't mind. I would love to have our businesses here.
If you'll print me up about 50 pieces of paper that say what we're trying to do with that little CAPTCHA thing down there that allows
Just a
people to
little
get the little
summary.
updates and everything like that, I will hand walk them to each business and get more people involved.
We each carry a newsletter, Chamber and HDA, so I will be more than happy to send out
You
that
let me know what
information.
side of the street you're covering and I'll cover the other side.
She'll
We'll
be
meet in the
emailing.
middle.
She'll be emailing.
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
we can just get
so
that provided.
for our timekeeping.
Yeah,
basis,
so I
we
think
need to
we're
Get this pretty well wrapped up here.
pretty much
Versus-
done, so I know I'm not supposed to get a vote for adjournment, but Yeah, it's 8 o'clock, 8:02. I was hoping to end it at 8 to make it a good time. Either way, it's really good discussion. Hopefully we're energized for next month. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We're officially adjourned. Thank you.